this is my earliest memory. My first memory of seeing a movie, I didn't know what it was. I just saw some people moving around. I sat there and I saw this screen with people behind it, and they kept getting bigger and smaller all the time. And I kept trying to figure out how they did that. That's my first movie experience. I didn't know what I was watching, and I couldn't figure it out. It was very mysterious to me. I have this memory of riding in the car with my parents and seeing a billboard for The Bride of Frankenstein. Something about it just fascinated me, and I said, oh, I want to see that, I want to see that. I was always asking my mother to let me see a horror movie. She didn't feel that such films were suitable for children, and she wouldn't take me. Finally, I coaxed her into taking me to see a movie called The Raven with Karloff and Lugosi. And in that film, Lugosi being a plastic surgeon who changes people's looks, and he operates on him. Karloff wakes up after the surgery, and of course, he's been turned into a monster, a hideous monster with one eye clear down on his cheekbone here, and really horrifying looking. Well, that was quite an image for a kid. My mother, she grabbed me and she dragged me out of the theater, and she said, that's the last horror film you're ever gonna see. And that whole world just fascinated me. Everything to do with film. I spent a lot of time at the local library. They had a copy of a book called Tales of Mystery and Imagination. That book was a book that I took out from the library again and again and again. When I was about 12, I convinced my parents for a Christmas present to buy me an 8mm camera. And finally, I tried to make a film of my favorite writer, Edgar Allan Poe, a film of House of Usher when I was 14. I've been driven, like any creative artist. You don't choose your medium, you might say your medium chooses you. And that was the medium that I wanted to express myself in. When I was 16 or 17, then I made my first so-called experimental avant-garde film called Fragment of Seeking. I've said it's a film about adolescent narcissism. All of my short films are just intuitive expressions. In a sense, they're very abstract because they don't deal with any given reality. They create a poetic reality. The best thing I could say would be rather dreamlike or out of the unconscious mind without any censorship. I wanted to get inside a studio, so I went to Paramount, and in those days, you could just walk into the employment department and ask for a job, which I did, and then I was interviewed. I must have been very arrogant because he said, we can get you a job as a messenger boy. I said, a messenger boy? And I remember he did a kind of a double take. I'm sure he was thinking, this snot-nosed kid, he's lucky to get anything at all. So he thought a moment. He said, well, I can get you a sort of a special job in the publicity department. I said, oh, that sounds good. I was a messenger boy in the publicity department. But I got to go on a lot of sets and watch movies being made, and it was when they were making golden earrings, and I used to see Marlene Dietrich in her gypsy makeup. It was wonderful. I did finally go to SC Film School, where I learned absolutely nothing. It was a complete waste of time from my point of view. When I got out of school, finally, I went first to New York, showed these films in New York. I met a lot of interesting people in New York, and I showed Maya Deren my short films, and she seemed to like them very much. And then I took the films and I went to Europe, and I lived almost 2 years in Europe, mostly in France. And while I was in Paris, I wrote some articles for Les Cahiers du Cinéma.
Menilmontant was a very poor section of Paris. I once went with my friend Kenneth Anger, the filmmaker.
Kenneth Anger and I were friends. He was making a Pleasure Dome. I acted in it as Cesare the Somnambulist. I had always loved the look of Conrad Veidt in the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, so I imitated the makeup as closely as I could. How I got started in Hollywood was that when I came back from Europe, I decided I wanted to graduate into making a feature film. My first feature was Night Tide. Night Tide was made completely independently. I fortunately got Dennis Hopper.
Hey, Wade. Just let me talk to you for a little while. I'll just walk along with you.
It's a story about a young sailor who meets a sideshow mermaid. There's this whole ambiguity as to whether she might be a real mermaid or not.
Because I feel the seawater in my veins. Because I listen to the roar of the sea and it speaks to me like a mother's voice. The tide pulls at my heart. And the face of the moon fills my soul with a strange longing.
Laura, I don't understand.
After I made Night Tide, the next film I made was one that Roger Corman assigned me to, which was to turn some Russian space opera footage into an American science fiction thriller.
Scientists profoundly hope that life, similar to that on Earth, may be found on this planet, where so many physical conditions are like our own.
I wrote it and incorporated this spectacular special effects footage in a whole new story.
Here he comes.
Don't miss on this.
We got Basil Rathbone in his last years.
Contact the Sirius at once.
And that brought me to the attention of Universal, which led to making games.
How terribly gruesome. Whoever thought up this lovely game?
Look,
I had created the leading role of the mysterious European woman for Marlene Dietrich. And Lou Wasserman, who was the head of the studio then, he said no one would be interested in seeing Miss Dietrich. I disagreed, but, you know, a lot of good that did. The second choice was Simone Signoret. She was wonderful.
You Americans have it so much easier than most of us. You're happy with such simple amusements. I'm afraid I'm used to infinitely more exciting and dangerous games.
Then the first 2 or 3 days she came to me and she said, now Curtis, she said, I know you're going to have trouble with the front office. So she said, whenever you have a problem, you just say there was nothing I could do because Signoret was being impossible. She said, my shoulders are broad and yours are not. You just blame it all on me. Now that is really nice, and that gives you an insight into what kind of a person she was. Games got wonderful reviews. It was a good thriller. Audiences loved it, and at the same time, on that mass level, they didn't love it because the villain gets away with everything, leaves this family destroyed, and walks off with all the money very happily.
Somebody cut me.
What's the Matter with Helen with Debbie Reynolds and Shelley Winters? That was a very personal film to me.
What's the matter with Helen?
What's the matter with Helen is that she's crazy.
Helen.
No, Del. I couldn't leave my poor little creatures, could I? I mean, I love them. The vet wouldn't take them back.
Shelley, I thought, gave a wonderful performance.
Matt?
And then I went to England and made Whoever Slew Auntie Roo with Shelley Winters and Ralph Richardson.
I'm not getting through to the other side.
Oh, please, Mr. Benton, please keep trying.
Perhaps something belonging to the departed, some object imbued with her vibrations.
Well, oh, what about her little teddy bear?
Ah.
Shall I hold it in my lap?
No, no. Let it join the circle.
Auntie Roo was definitely based on Hansel and Gretel.
Why'd you keep us locked in here all day?
Well, Christopher, it's just for a few days. Till the new year. Gives me a chance to fatten you both up.
But a very cynical retelling of the story.
Christopher, knives aren't anything to play with. They're not for children. They're dangerous. Give me that knife. Now, Christopher, give it to me. You could get hurt. They could get hurt. Catherine could get hurt. Make it hurt, Christopher.
I think my connection is to the mythic. I always look for the mythic underpinnings of a story as well as the hidden meanings. Well, The Killing Kind, we managed to get another old-time star into it.
Oh, my God.
Ann Southern, who was wonderful.
You always did like the movies. You get that from me. You get a lot of things from me. And I saw every Little League game. And I was the proudest mother on the block.
And then my big discovery was to find John Savage. I thought he was just wonderful in the film, and I'm very proud of it.
You're still young, you know. You got plenty of time.
Jesus Christ!
And then later I did a TV movie with Gloria Swanson, so I got to work with another huge legendary star.
Oh.
schön.
The head of the studio at that time wanted Betty Davis. I had met Miss Davis socially, and we hit it off well. And then when this came up, I'll never forget it, there were a couple of young producers, and the phone rang, and they said, this sort of stricken look came over their faces, and I said, I think she wants to talk to you, Curtis, and they handed me the phone. And Betty Davis didn't even say hello, I'll never forget. She said, I'm absolutely terrified. I said, well, Miss Davis, why? And she said, I want to do this film, but I can't do it. My doctor won't let me. And then she explained that she's one of those people that will go into shock if she had even a single bee sting that could kill her, so she couldn't do it. So that's when we got Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson is totally sympathetic to animals. It was very easy. She would just psych herself into it and say, I love these bees. Bees are God's creatures, and they're beautiful, and they're not going to harm me, and I love them.
Are you all right? Of course, I am only demonstrating for our visitors from out of town. How harmless are our little bees. Oh, yeah, Shana. Come. Yeah.
Somebody at some point said, you're the new George Cukor because you work so well with these difficult ladies. I always got along very well with them. Female characters lend themselves to more color, whether it's in costuming or personality. They're all sort of bigger than life.
I have to. Let me go.
Not supposed to.
Well, I directed mostly episodic for Aaron Spelling. I worked with the girls, Charlie's Angels. I worked with the Angels. They weren't angels, but anyway.
Chris, come on, honey. You're too close to the water. Chris, come on, honey. You're too close to the water. Come on.
But the main thing I worked on was Dynasty. Dynasty was hugely successful all over the world. I just considered it to be fun. You can't make anything artistic out of a television show. It's just a craftsman-like job. You know, you've got to bring it in on time. I went to Europe to do Mata Hari with Sylvia Kristel. Sylvia Kristel is the most famous erotic star. And of course, Sylvia Kristel can't act at all. And I had to give her line readings and do all kinds of tricks.
Take your hands off me. Let me go. I told you I know nothing about this. That's her. She's the one. It's not true.
And I was very flattered because one of the French reviews said, Sylvia Kristel has an acting talent that we did not suspect that she had before.
They told me I was a predestined soul, dedicated to Shiva, god of the mysteries of love.
I'm always interested in the personal view. Commercial filmmaking tends to be very impersonal. It's all just churned out of a stamping press. You know, you couldn't tell who directed it. It doesn't matter. My aim was always to do a project that I wanted to do. I decided to make Usher on my own. Oh, I love the story. That story had an exceptionally powerful impact on me for the first time I read it.
Madeline!
Madeline, do come and meet our visitor. I remember waking up one day and the whole thing sort of flooded into my mind. The great thing was that nobody told me what script to write. Nobody told me what scene to shoot. Nobody told me how to cut it. It ended up being what I wanted, and that's the important thing. It's a very personal film. I have been suffering from a certain morbidness of the mind. I am tormented by images of the conqueror worm devouring flesh. That flesh that once gave one so much pleasure. It was very similar to how I started making films on my own in 16 millimeter. It was like an echo of that.
You buried me alive.
I suppose I identify with the character of Roderick Usher because I see myself as someone apart from the crowd and alone and into my own interior world. Now, the nice thing is the number of people who have discovered my films through the years. So that's very flattering in the sense that they must see something unique and special in my films. You will notice in my films they're never sentimental in any way. I abhor sentimentality.
Don't stare, Donna. It's rude.
My group of films, they broke the big Hollywood taboo in their way, and that is that they're all tragedies. They all have a tragic ending, every one of them. I can't explain my particular interests. I can't explain why they have dominated my life. I can't tell you where that comes from. I've often wondered myself. I mean, why should I be fascinated by horror films when I'm 5 years old? I only feel that I came into this world with it. There are two words, esoteric and exoteric. Exoteric is all on the surface, that's what you see. Esoteric is the hidden meaning, the hidden thing behind. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the unseen, the secret behind appearances.